Hopefully anything to make the offense better, and it appears as though anything to keep the defense together. Those are the moves made and the projected moves made that need to be made by Kirk Ferentz and his Iowa Hawkeyes coming up soon. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, Hawkeyes Live, right here each and every Tuesday, 4:30 Central, with Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We've done this now 129 consecutive weeks. That's over 2 years with you every Tuesday talking Hawkeyes football. Corey, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Mark. How are you?
I am doing just fine. And yes, there is news to report, and then there's the continued speculation, and the search continues for an offensive coordinator. But first, we do have actual breaking news. Seth Wallace, Phil Parker, two of the defensive stalwarts on this staff. So Seth Wallace has received a nice pay increase from $755,000 per year to $1 million even. Maybe more importantly, and something could possibly be read into this, also the title change or addition of assistant head coach.
And I don't think, just for the record, I don't think people should read into that at all. And the reason, and I'll explain why. It's been widely believed for a while that Seth Wallace would be the next defensive coordinator at Iowa. He is not the head coach in waiting, based upon the fact that he's been named the assistant head coach. That's my take on this. Not to say that he might not one day be the head coach at Iowa. Maybe LeVar Woods one day is the head coach at Iowa. My reaction to this is based upon what I know to be true and what other people in the media know to be true, that Seth Wallace has been pursued by other schools. And so you have to figure out a way to give him a pay boost in order to match what other schools are probably offering, positions and money, etc. So in order to give him a substantial pay boost without maybe further explanation, I guess, is to give him a promotion, give him a title. I don't think his duties are going to probably change at all. I mean, he's still going to be a linebackers coach. He's going to be the assistant defensive coordinator. I mean, unless he's bringing bagels to Kirk's office every morning, I don't really think the fact that he's the assistant head coach means a whole lot. I've not talked to anybody within the program today that's confirmed that to me, but that's my reaction to it. I know Minnesota, they were at one point not that long ago were kind of dancing around Seth Wallace, trying to pursue him. There have been schools that, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you? With the success stories we've seen out of that room, he's a young guy. He's kind of been Phil Parker's right-hand man for quite some time. But I'm guessing that Seth Wallace loves it at Iowa. I think he's pretty much said as much. So, he's getting paid $1 million to not even have to coordinate. Technically, he's doing a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. He's obviously credited, and I think the credit is well deserved. But he's getting $1 million a year. Phil Parker's not a young spring chicken. I think he realizes, hey, if I stick around here, I got a pretty, I don't want to say guaranteed, but a pretty assured spot as the next defensive coordinator. And hey, our head coach isn't very young either. So who's to say I wouldn't be a candidate someday for that job? That's my way of reading into this. I think this is more so salary, and Iowa needed to. That's over 30% salary increase. That's significant.
This is a rare situation at Iowa in another way. So we've got a defensive coordinator who it's easy to make an argument as the best in the business. We have, if we go through each position coach from defensive line all the way through the secondary, how long have each one of them been on staff and with Phil Parker? Roughly.
That's a good question. Seth Wallace, I'd have to go back and look at Seth's journey. I know he was here through the Josie Jewell era, the Bo Bauer, Cole Fisher, those guys. I was actually thinking about that because I cut a video that's I think it's scheduled to go up here in a few minutes. But I'd have to go back and look. He has climbed the ladder, I can tell you. Let's see. Let me find this. You're probably doing the same
So
thing.
while you're looking for this, yes, I was. While you're looking for that, it was just my thought that they're in a situation where I'm sure someone like yourself, I wouldn't be able to make this distinction. I know how well the defense is performing overall. I watch half the games roughly, probably more than that. And so I've got more of a treetop view of this defense. But it just appears as though, why would you not say, okay, we've got the best defensive coordinator in the country. We are happy with our line play, with our linebacker play, with our secondary play. What can we possibly do to keep this together as long as possible? Which is a difficult task because coaches leave for two reasons. Either they're not doing their job and you need to get them out, or they're doing it at an excellent rate and they are hot commodities to go elsewhere and advance.
Seth Wallace was added. So he was a GA back in the like 2006, 2008, according to what I'm seeing, but he was actually added to the staff, full-time staff in 2014, coached linebacker starting in 2016, was named assistant defensive coordinator in 17. You're absolutely right. I think most would say that defensive line play has been very good under Kelvin Bell. But linebacker play has been better. Not that you're comparing the two, and not that Kelvin Bell won't get a pay increase. There's been talk over the last season or two that perhaps assistant defensive line coach Jay Neiman might be walking away. Both his kids, Ben and Nick, are playing in the NFL now. Jay came over from Rutgers kind of late in his tenure and got to coach primarily Nick. And, maybe he's at the point where he wants to walk away. If that happens, they're probably going to hire somebody else they're going to fill a spot somewhere, but it might not be assistant defensive line coach. So might they give Kelvin Bell a significant increase at that time? I think that's possible, maybe even probable. But Seth Wallace, I think too, the other part of this is what we don't know what's going on behind the scenes as it relates to other schools getting involved. I don't think other schools are trying to poach Kelvin Bell like they've tried to poach Seth Wallace. And Phil Parker, he's had plenty of opportunities to go other places this offseason. He's had opportunities to go other places. I don't think he's interested in that. And that's the other part of the news that we got today. He's been promoted, or I shouldn't say promoted, but given a substantial raise. What was he making prior? Like 1.2 million. He's making 1.9 now, I think.
Yeah, I saw 1.4.
1.4. Okay, but think about that raise. That is, and deservedly so. The market should dictate that. And if they're going to want to go get an OC, a big name OC, you can't be paying a big name OC, 1.5 to 2 million who hasn't proven anything here when you have a guy who's literally just been named the best assistant coach in the country making less than you. So we'll see what they do at OC. That's a totally different conversation. A lot of people are frustrated, Mark. You're kind of watching from afar. I am so tired of the speculation. I'm just so tired of it. I've had people ask me, why don't you do a video on this UNLV assistant coach? Why don't you do a video on Philbin? Why don't you do a video on Chryst? Why don't you do a video? It's like, I don't want to do it. You're right, Mark. It would pull in lots of views. But at some point, I get tired of talking about rumors that I don't even know. Some of these rumors, I don't even know where they're getting started. Like the UNLV thing, I've been told there's little to no truth. And I say little because I guess there's always a chance that Kirk has contacted this guy and we just don't know about it. But I think a lot of these rumors get made up on on message boards and social media. It has been publicized, and I've known this for a number of days now. And it's interesting. There's always information that you hear and you're told, hey, keep it on the down low. And then somehow, somewhere, someone releases it. Somebody, I don't remember what website it was last night, published an article that basically said that Chryst was staying at Texas. And that reiterates what we've known, re-solidifies what we've known for at least the last few to 4 days, that Paul Chryst turned down the Iowa job. So he was offered the job. That has been published. That has been stated publicly now. There are other media people who have went on the record and said this, so I feel comfortable saying it now. He was offered the job, waited Iowa out. I'm not saying he led Iowa on, but he sat on that offer for a couple of weeks and eventually basically said, nope, I guess not. I'm not taking it. Very odd situation. I don't know, what's Chryst thinking as far as the future? Is he looking to land a head coaching job? Whatever. I know there were some people internally that were probably a little frustrated by the situation, and understandably so, because now we are mid-January, and I don't know who they're going to hire because he was offered the job.
So to go on the Chryst scenario, and not to speculate about what the conversations were or who acted professionally or inappropriately in any way, but on the surface, as you just laid out, it's common courtesy when offered a job to either let them know in a reasonable time. And in all the hiring situations I've been involved in, certainly when I've been the target of the hiring, it was given to me roughly how long I needed or was able to take to get back. So on one hand, man, that just seems like, wow, there's all these candidates coming off the board while Chryst is taking his time to get back.
Right.
But then that's also Iowa's issue. And if they were waiting that long for him in particular to allow him to keep them on the string for that long.
Doesn't sound like Kirk was too concerned about it at the time. I don't know if Kirk was overconfident that Chryst would take the job. I can tell you it's been widely publicized. Kirk also has had conversations with Joe Philbin. Andy Ludwig is no longer a candidate. We've established that, but Philbin's been on the list. This is not information that I was able to confirm, but I think it was Chad Leistko, the Des Moines Register, reported that Philbin is not a candidate any longer. That I have not confirmed. I've not been told that Philbin is no longer a candidate. I was told here a few days ago that, perhaps they would have to go back to Philbin if all else failed. He, of course, is an analyst right now at Ohio State. And for the record, I don't think Philbin would be a bad choice. But assuming what Chad Leistko is reporting is accurate, and I have no reason to doubt Chad, they're going to have to go to somebody else. And there's a lot of head coaching, just a lot of jobs in general right now open in the NFL. Guys who are, just today you had the OC over at New Orleans get fired. What was his name? He's been there for 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah, he's been there forever. Pete Carmichael was just fired today along with their wide receivers coach. Iowa just let their wide receivers coach go, and they're in need of a quarterbacks coach / OC. So, maybe. I don't know of any connections between Kirk and this guy. I looked up his resume. I believe he coached at Louisiana Tech, but he's been in the NFL for like almost 3 decades, and he's in his 50s. He's not an old guy, but, maybe he's a guy who could, Kirk could pursue. But, boy, this is not the position you wanted to be in. Now, Kirk did talk about this prior to the bowl game that, perhaps we'd be still up in the air about this decision in February. I think most people had hoped this would be resolved by maybe second week of January. And here we are on the 16th. I think we got a ways to go on this whole search.
The coaching profession is so strange. I cannot think of another industry like this where you can do a good job. So it's not based on you not performing, but because of just situations, the person above you getting fired and having to find another job, where you have, for example, a Joe Philbin. He's been an NFL head coach. That is at the top of the profession. And now he's an offensive analyst somewhere.
Yeah, and my only hesitancy with Joe is the lack of quarterback reputation. That's my only issue with Joe Philbin. He's no doubt that he would be a very good coordinator. And I also wonder a little bit about his play calling ability. He's called some plays here or there, but it just makes me nervous, I guess is what it makes me nervous coming off of a guy who, Brian Ferentz, does not have the resume of Joe Philbin, but Brian Ferentz is a former offensive lineman and was considered an O-line coach. So I feel like they need to go somewhere else in a different direction. Someone who's not known for offensive line acumen, but somebody who understands a quarterback position. Maybe Philbin could be a last resort. I'm not going to cry if Philbin gets named, but I would hope there are better options. One guy that I mentioned a few weeks ago that I haven't heard any talk about him, but Frank Reich, I think, is still on the board, the ex-Carolina head coach. He's another example of a guy who's an offensive guy and didn't have a good year with Carolina, but, you know, he understands quarterback play in the passing game. That's what they need. So, you know, the good thing about Kirk, the advantage Kirk has over a lot of college coaches is he does have a very strong network as it relates to the league, having coached in the league and been around the game for so long. So if you're talking about anybody going late into the game like this, Kirk Ferentz probably isn't a bad one to be in this position. But I understand why people are frustrated. And one thing that, and I think it was, I don't get time to read a whole lot of other media people's information, but somebody sent me an article. Again, I think it was the same story that Chad Leistiko of the Register published. And I think it was Chad made a good point that, you know, some of these smaller, quote unquote, smaller candidates, like, is it Lujan, the OC from, was it South Dakota State that just got hired by Braun over at Northwestern? Like, he's an example of a guy they got in on early, kind of a small name, but could be a slam dunk hire based on what he did at the FCS level. People like that are no longer on the board. So the pool is smaller. And I'm not blaming Kirk for giving Paul Chryst time to decide. Maybe you could argue he shouldn't have given him as long as he did. I don't have the exact deadline in front of me, but he gave him a certain number of days, and it sounded like Paul Chryst didn't respond. And upon further follow-up, Chryst couldn't give Iowa a yes. So, and then of course the report yesterday was substantiated that Chryst apparently is planning on staying at Texas.
Yeah, if somebody can't get back to you in 3 or 4 days, unless they communicate to you that there is some type of family situation, family issue that is complicated, something like that needs to be navigated, I would think, wow, if they are deciding a week, 2 weeks later that, okay, I'll take the job, I would have some reservations on the hiring end as to their commitment and their excitement level. Now, you bring up the UNLV offensive coordinator and that report, wherever that came from. And I posted the gentleman's picture on our post on X. So that is Brendan Marion. So he was a passing coordinator at Pitt and Texas prior to his stop at UNLV. Like you, I don't even know where I saw that. I did a Google search just preparing for the show the last couple hours, saw that pop up. But what made me chuckle was I see this reported as him being a viable candidate for the Iowa job. I know nothing about him. I'm looking up. I know that UNLV succeeded expectations this year overall as a team. Barry Odom came in from Missouri. They've been a terrible, terrible football program for decades. They had a nice football season, 9 wins. And I look him up. You know what the first thing I see that makes me chuckle? When you look him up, Google him, and it says something about authoring or started the go-go offense. And I thought, I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound like Iowa.
Well, my understanding is it's not just a pass-heavy attack. My understanding is it is still based upon establishing the run and tempo. So that isn't really Iowa. We've seen Iowa run tempo at times. I think they've been better at times, maybe because it's been going against the Iowa grain. But yeah, again, I've not been told anything that makes me think that those reports are or were legitimate. And I heard I can tell you, somebody sent me a text that said, hey, a number of players, and he listed this individual who will remain unnamed, listed a number of Iowa players that apparently started following Brendan Marion on Twitter. So, you know, when that happens, then people start tracking flights and, you know, all this stuff. But this is all I'll say. I reached out to one of those players who I was told followed Brendan Marion. And I said, hey, this is what I was told that you started following. I know it's kind of a ridiculous question, but can you give me any substance to this? This player responded to me and said, I do not run my Twitter account, and it probably was a fake page for me. Now, that's just one of the players that said that. In other words, he was not the one who followed the UNLV OC. So at that point, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to continue with this. I would just like an announcement at some point. I understand people love, like, I'm not saying that everything is clickbait, but I see these other videos and these other articles, and everything's about the OC search. I get people are invested in this, but until we get substantial discussion, like the Paul Chryst thing that's legitimate. That happened. He was offered, he turned it down. We move on. But like the Scott Frost crap and this Brennan Marion and who are the other names that have been thrown out there? I mean, Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb was never coming to Iowa. It just, we can talk about it. We've talked about it, but it wasn't happening. It's not going to happen.
Nate Shieldhouse.
Well, the Nate Shieldhouse thing, is there even any, is there any legitimacy to the reports out there that Campbell was potentially being, he was being pursued by Washington at one time? Is there any legitimacy to that report?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So I think we've got two things working typically in these situations. We've got actual traces of evidence of reports that are based on conversations where it's determined that there is a connection between the two parties, like with Chryst in Iowa. Then there are others where so, for example, we've had 2 head coaching vacancies, very prominent ones. Well, 3 just in the last week, obviously, Alabama, Washington, and Arizona. So what do I do? Like a lot of other people do. Who's logical to go to this job? And I make a list. I look around. Shoot, I'll just pull up the standings and go through coaches and coordinators and think, I make up a list. I don't report that there's any connection there. No, I'm just talking about logical candidates, which me and a whole lot of other people, it's not like I was a genius to connect Jedd Fisch to Washington, but that was the first person I thought of and threw out there.
So are you surprised with how fast that happened?
Wow, it did. But he was just so logical in terms of the conference tie-in, what he did with Arizona. And in a situation like that, this is where I believe college football has changed so much because of the transfer portal. I would have said prior to the portal and what it's done to college football that Jedd Fisch, despite, I know Arizona fans, of course, don't like him leaving after he's just got something started, would be leaving the program in a good place because he's done so much there. Not necessarily now in this day and age, because everybody just flees. So what he's established, how he's upgraded the roster, it's probably going to, most of it, be torn to shreds.
And a couple notes real quick, and I need to slip out for like 2 minutes, Mark. First of all, reaction to Taulia Tagovailoa's waiver being denied by the NCAA. Were you surprised by that?
I can't say I was surprised or not surprised. I didn't look into speculation about why or if they gave a reason why. So I don't know that.
It sounds like Alabama, even Nick Saban had kind of touted for him to get an extra year, which is an interesting storyline, and NCAA still turned it down. So why they do certain things, it's hard to explain. They granted Nick Jackson an extra year of eligibility, and he missed a couple of games due to what happened at Virginia 2 years ago. Real quick, just want to address this comment in the chat. Matt says, from the sound of it, plenty of people would like to be Iowa's offensive coordinator, but money, or someone, Kirk, stand in the way. I have not been given any indication to make me think that it's money. At one time we talked about that, but I don't think it's money. So is there a possibility that Kirk has kind of turned a blind eye to options that go against his style? Yeah, sure. I made the comment reported here weeks ago that there were people, including one in particular, that really went against the Kirk Ferentz grain, big name, that reached out to Iowa. And it sounds like Kirk kind of just moved on from that possibility. I don't know that was mutual. I don't know if it wasn't, but I still think Kirk is Kirk. And he's going to be hard pressed to go with someone he's not extremely comfortable with that offensive coordinator position.
So he's turning people down. I shouldn't say he's turning them down, but there are those that he would not accept, regardless of their success, because of the style fit or lack of fit. And then there's also, you got to think, those who don't want to risk their reputations coming to this offense and feeling as though they're boxed in, or they just won't succeed, and then it's going to be difficult for them to rebound to another job and continue their career path in a positive direction.
Wouldn't it be interesting to know the explanation, the reasoning from Paul Chryst? I would be interested to know what that is. And he's never going to say. We're never going to know. We're never going to know from his mouth, because I guarantee you asked him today publicly, his response would be, I'm excited about Texas and blah, 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 blah. But obviously there was interest because he was interested. Iowa was interested, but it's not happening. Mark, I'm going to slip away for just a second. I'll be right back.
Folks, we talked to all of you this week via a poll, and I was just curious on this front. So with the changes in the Big Ten schedule, and obviously these three schools in the Big Ten have always been on the schedule. I posted a poll. There we go. Too many windows open. Posted a poll this week, and I was just curious to get a response. So if you got a second, just go to the front page here, either during the show or after the show, and take part in the poll. Because again, with the three designated rivals for this program now going forward in the Big Ten, so the Big Ten has stated, hey, we've got three schools that we need Iowa to play each and every year. Which was the most important to you? Plus, we throw in the Iowa State game. And so now we've got about 250 people have voted. And we've got Iowa State running away with it. I was just curious here, Corey. So I posted this poll the other day. So I'm encouraging folks to jump on, because we only have about 230 votes with the three designated rivals that the Big Ten has set. And then obviously Iowa State, what Iowa fans felt was the most important rivalry, and Iowa State is running away with it. Well, no, Wisconsin's right there at 32%, but those are the two that people are citing.
That's interesting that people say Iowa State is the most important. I mean, your question is, which is the most important? I don't know how you possibly say that Iowa State's the most important when I think there's a good likelihood that at some point that game gets dropped. And Wisconsin ain't getting dropped. Minnesota's not getting dropped. Nebraska's not getting dropped. Frankly, I think with the hire of Luke Fickell and the moderate success they had in year one, I think that remains the biggest rivalry, in my opinion. Now we'll see. I mean, Minnesota's not a dumpster fire. Nebraska's, got a up and coming coach, we think, as well. But I would say Wisconsin to that. And Iowa State had a good year as well. But just the dynamic of college football and scheduling is changing even more so in 2024.
We had a fun time this morning over on the main channel running down our postseason rankings for 2023, 1 through 133, not just the top 25 that actually makes sense, but running through the entire gamut. So check it out. See where we ranked Iowa at 10-4. And like I told you a few weeks ago, Corey, I am very curious to go through once some of this news simmers down, and maybe we can start it next week if you're comfortable with it, running through recruiting classes, maybe starting at, 2022 would be maybe the first year that has some kind of track record at this point, and going backwards and getting your evaluation. And I'm sure I'll have something to say, but your evaluation of whether these guys have come through and whether we can see some trends there.
Yeah, there have been some classes, especially at the offensive line position, and it's been well documented. I've talked about it, that they've looked pretty good because of that position, and then guys just don't pan out, or they walk away with injury, or they transfer. I can tell you people need to, well, I won't say it. Let's move on. Let's move on, Mark.
People, you need to be good fans. Let's say that. And you need to show up here at the Voice of College Football every Tuesday, but every day at from the Hawkeye of the Storm, especially as we get close to February Frenzy, March Madness, of course, men's and women's basketball with the Hawkeyes, and football discussion. And for as much as Corey may get weary talking about offensive coordinator speculation, I can just about guarantee when there's one actually hired that he'll be all over that. And certainly that's the place to be.
Not necessarily looking forward to a 3-hour live stream, but I'm not looking forward to it either. So I'm just, like I say, I'm be happy when the news is behind us and we can kind of move on. And Iowa needs some clarity. I mean, it's not like this is just being kept on the down low. I mean, it is to an extent, but yeah, I don't even think I can tell you with pretty good confidence. Even Kirk didn't know who's going to be the next offensive coordinator. So that is a little bit of an uneasy thing. And I know that with the early signing period and with the transfer portal and all this stuff, everything's been moved up as it relates to offseason moves. But Mark, here we are on January 16th. Would you say that if you were an Iowa fan, you'd be moderately concerned right now, having not gotten a coach? We've got to keep in mind, this Brian Ferentz news, we knew Kirk was going to focus on the season, but we knew about this move during the regular season, like 2/3 of the way through the regular season. So it's not like it's been, they played in the college football playoff and somebody retired. No, we've known this for about 2 months.
We see where the head coach and all that responsibility, who is the both figurehead and the CEO of the program and has so much responsibility, and that is such an important hire, that is the hire, and programs act within 48 hours and jump on that because there's so much competition there and they want to get it right. They want to maintain. Now, the difference there is there's a maintenance of the roster and trying to keep players and not have them scurry everywhere and have them be comfortable with, okay, well, we've replaced this person with another top line coach, so we can put your worries to rest. So there's that factor involved, sure, but the longer this goes, the more difficult, just the less options there are. There's no question about that. With the NFL playoffs going on, and we just went through Wild Card Weekend, this just popped into my head. Of course, Iowa is tight end U. I don't think there's any question about that, whether you want to measure that just simply in college, but most people take that position designation into the NFL. What do those players do on the next level? And historically, all time, we could have a great debate. And I don't even know who I would pin as, I don't think there is one school, but over the last 10 to 15 years, it's Iowa. It's not even close. Does the university, does the football program, do they do anything from a public standpoint, promotional standpoint, to push that narrative, to take advantage of all that those guys are doing in the NFL?
Besides social media activity and sharing highlights from Hawkinson and Laporta and Kittle, I don't really know. I think that's a good idea from a marketing standpoint. I think Iowa could probably utilize that mantra more, even during a season. I think they utilize it on the recruiting trail, although they're not known for getting 4- and 5-star tight ends. They get a few 4-stars here or there, but a lot of the guys they end up developing, Laporta, Kittle, Hawkinson, like none of those guys were highly recruited. Even Noah Fant, I mean, he's moderately recruited as a D-end / tight end, and he comes to Iowa, and now he's playing in the league, and he's kind of the forgotten man in the league behind Laporta, Kittle, and Hawkinson. But he's a starter. I mean, he's a starter for Seattle. He's had kind of a series of rough situations, and now Pete Carroll has been ousted from Seattle, so that situation gets more and more difficult. But I really like the group that's coming in 2024, Michael Byrd and Gavin Hoffman. Gavin Hoffman did, I guess we could bring this up, There are guys who are now on campus. Gavin Hoffman's one. Reese Dakin, the Australian punter, is in town, so he got to experience the sub-zero temperatures over the past week. So good for him. And I know he's at a women's basketball game, I think, on Saturday. So they have some early enrollees, and they'll get to work here soon.
Has it warmed up slightly?
No.
Yeah. It didn't quite reach those digits here. It's like 15 degrees out.
Yeah, we were in the negative teens. I guess you could say it's warmed up. It's 4 degrees right now. When I looked this last. So it's going to warm up slightly tomorrow and then plummet again. I think the high on Saturday is 0. So this is what we have, and I think next week will be warmer in the 30s. But those guys, I mean, someone like Dakin, and trying to think, where is Gavin Hoffman from? I should know this, and I can't remember where he's from now. Man, we've been so focused on this coaching search, my personnel mind has failed me. Gavin Hoffman is from Blue Valley Northwest, which is Kansas City. So he's a Midwest kid. I was just thinking of the guys that they brought in as early enrollees. I don't believe James Rezar is there early. He's a Floridan, so he'll get there in the summer, as I assume. And we've not heard any more about they don't have scholarships available as it relates to the transfer portal. And that really hasn't been a conversation over the past week. And it really shouldn't be, because, again, they don't have spots available. And they're going to go land a quarterback, like the talk about Ty Thompson from Oregon. They're not going to be able to do that, I don't think, without having an idea of who the coordinator is going to be. So if one of the priorities in the offseason is to find an extra quarterback in the portal, I would be prioritizing getting this person hired as quickly as possible. Not that that's the main criteria involved here, but it should be a factor if that's a plan that Kirk Ferentz wants to pursue.
I always envision these recruiting trips with Southern athletes coming up north and thinking, number one, these coaching staffs have to be just praying and hoping, let's have a heat wave, let's have good weather when they visit. And knowing my experience with people from the South and from out west, let's say California, even if we are experiencing warm weather for us, let's say it was 40 degrees right now in Iowa, that those people would show up. Again, this is based on my experience, and you, being the northerner, would feel good about, okay, it's 40 degrees, it's sunny, it's a great day. And they'd be like, wow, it's freezing. It's freezing here. This is ridiculous. And you're thinking, this is actually as good as it gets right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, first 2 months of winter, what I consider winter, I know not technically, most of December is not winter, but the first 2 months of winter, we caught a huge break. So maybe we should have been more opportunistic during that time period.
We've really not had snow here until now, and we're not buried in snow. There's about 3 inches of snow.
Yeah.
Erica.
We've got about 2 feet of snow, Mark.
Okay.
So you're aware.
Yeah. Erica, thank you so much for being here as always. Hate to say this, but any chance, KF, this fan base abbreviates the initials of the coaches more than any other fan base. I think I can confidently say that. Any chance KF tries to call plays himself?
No, he's not a play caller. No way on earth. He's not that. He's not dumb. Kirk Ferentz is not dumb. Say what you want about Kirk. He ain't dumb. He's not going to be doing that. I think the more valid concern would be, hey, Erica, I hate to say this, but is there any chance that John Budymayer just becomes the fallback here? That would be the biggest concern I'd have. And I've not been given any indication to make me think that is an option. But that would be a more logical one, because at least Budymayer knows play calling. But boy, that'd put a lot of people on edge if they had to do that. That would not be a good look. And I don't know if he could make it work. And maybe he could. Maybe he'd be the next great offensive coordinator. But I doubt it.
This is a silly conversation, but I'm going to bring this up anyway, and we'll never know. But hand you the playbook, hand me the playbook, give us a month with the playbook. If we would have gone through last season having some prep with the playbook, whatever playbook they have, we wouldn't even get to change it. Just we get the playbook and we just call plays based on situations. We know it's 3rd and 7. We're on the sideline. We call the play. Would their offense have performed? I don't know that it would have been that much worse. They didn't score a point against the 3 best teams they played.
You know, there's a lot of young guys in the league, like a lot of young play callers in the league, Mark, that are, you know, I don't know, like the guy from, is it from Miami? What's his name? From the Dolphins?
Oh, the head coach?
Yeah, how old is
Mike
that guy?
McDaniel?
Yeah, how old is he?
I like that guy.
But he looks like no offense to Mike McDaniel,
Yeah.
but it looks like his background is playing video games.
Yeah, it does. He is completely where Dan Campbell is football guy through and through.
Sure.
Mike McDaniel, yeah, he looks like a math teacher.
So my so my question is there any reason to think that some of these new age coaches are maybe not the most, I don't know, like, I mean, all these guys have resumes, right? But I don't know, football's changed and how you become qualified for certain jobs has changed. And, you know, I even had the fleeting thought for a minute this week, like, should Kirk start looking at the powerhouse high schools out there and figure out, you know, the best coordinator? I don't know how common that is to do. I think it's probably more common at the G5 level to do that. Probably a pretty big risk bringing a guy from the high school ranks up to the Power 5 level, but you got to figure out a way to be innovative. And I think that's the fear from a lot of fans right now, is they don't view their head coach as very innovative in general.
Mike McDaniel is 40 years old, 2 months away from being 41. Now, Kirk wouldn't do this. This is not his style, and I respect him for this, but this happens more and more today. I've certainly noticed it more the last few years, where coaches will take a new job during the off season, not even work one season at that school. Let's say be at that new position for 3 weeks and get hired away from that position and then go coach somewhere else. So basically nobody's off the table is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I saw the comment here in the chat from D. Rollifson. I did not know so McDaniel was a wide receiver at Yale. I did not realize that. Is that legitimate?
I'm looking at his Wikipedia page. Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's where he went to school.
That's great. That's awesome. I mean,
playing career. Yeah. It doesn't give any stats. I don't know if he played. Yeah, he's from Colorado and he played at Yale. Yeah, smart guy.
Yeah.
We do appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. And keep in mind that if for whatever reason that particular week, it's best that you listen to the show. You could catch both this show and a number of other selections from Corey on the audio podcast from the Hawkeye of the Storm that you can find on your favorite audio platform. Again, this show and Corey's other selections. And just do me one favor and be kind in evaluating my voice against Corey's. We'll just say he's got a better mic.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Sure.
No, I think
he's got deeper pipes than I do.
I think I've told you this before, and I'll say it live on the air. I think you are missing out on all your content. You have so much content, much long form content. I think you're missing out on some opportunity there. I think people would love to hear your stuff on audio form.
Yeah, I used to do that, and I need to get back to it. I would like to produce an original. Like if I could get a rotation of you and others to do a podcast with me once a week, then I would release an original podcast. You're just talking about repurposing, which again I've done in the past, and that's a good idea as well.
Yeah. No, I think both are great ideas. I think the FCS channel is a good idea.
Of course it is. This name's come up in the past. What is the latest on Chuck Long? Is that any possibility? I don't see his name anywhere. Okay.
No possibility whatsoever. None, Mark. None with a capital N.
What does the Iowa basketball schedule look like this week?
Got women. The women play tonight. Women play tonight, and let's see. Men won last night. Great win for the men. They went up to the barn in Minneapolis and won. So men will be back on the hardwood, play the number 2 team in the country, Purdue, on Saturday, and the women play home against Wisconsin tonight. So I'll post-game coverage tonight. That game's on Peacock. Do you have Peacock, Mark? Have you gotten Peacock yet?
It's funny because this worked out perfectly. So, of course, the one NFL game this past weekend was on Peacock. I saw all sorts of complaints on social media. I used to love the NFL, wouldn't miss a playoff game. Now I'm kind of haphazard, whatever, if I'm home, and I'll even sometimes choose to watch something else. So I'm in and out. I watched a little bit more this past weekend, but I noticed that I had, because of a certain number of games or Big Ten games on Peacock, I got a Peacock subscription that ran out on Sunday. So I was able to check back in for the Chiefs-Dolphins game, watch some of it on Peacock, and then canceled my free subscription just in time.
Yeah. Somebody told me that you can get Peacock for like $30 a year, and I should probably look into doing that. But I've been getting. I mean, it's cheap. It is cheap.
Yeah.
And it does have. You're talking about live sporting events, the Big Ten. If you're into tennis and the Olympics and stuff, NBC does a lot of that stuff on Peacock. So I think Peacock should start paying me, because I've defended them on so many of my live shows when people have called in and said, I don't want to get Peacock. Why? You know, and I'm just like, hey, it's like $4 or $5 a month. I paid for Flow Hoops to be able to watch the Iowa women, and that was $30 for a month. And I was only there to watch like 2
Flow
games.
Hoops.
You ever heard of that? They're big on wrestling. So they have Flow Wrestling and Flow Hoops. It's all college basketball and college wrestling.
People pay $30 a month for that.
It's been around for a long. It must be when they first came out with Flow Sports. I thought it was going to be a joke, and I still think it is. But they've been around a long time, so they must get subscribers.
And between all the ESPN networks, Fox, Big Ten Network, you can watch 1 million college basketball games.
Yeah. No, I know.
And you're going to buy more? I don't even know what games those would be. Maybe your school up in North Dakota State might play a lot of games on Flow Hoops.
I believe the Colonial Athletic Conference, their media deal involves
George
Flow
Washington.
Hoops. And then they have a lot of early season tournaments, mostly on the women's side. Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but and who is this in the chat? Erica says she gets free Peacock with her cable. I've never heard of that. That's cool. I didn't realize that cable companies were doing it. I've cut the cord many years ago. I never had a cord.
Never.
Well, I mean, growing up I did, but I mean, as an adult, I've never. Well, I shouldn't say never. Have I had cable? Maybe living in some rentals back in the day. Probably. I've never paid for cable, I guess is what I should say. I've never actually paid
Good
for
for
cable.
you. I'm still paying for it.
Why don't you switch over to something?
So easy. Pardon me?
It's so easy. Lots of things are easy. Not getting out of bed would be easy, Mark. Why don't you switch over to one of these streaming services?
Every time I look up YouTube TV, Hulu, all those type of services, there's always some condition in there that I think, okay, well, I'm not going to get. And my list of channels that I need is not very long. I don't.
Yeah. Well,
I don't need news services. I can look up news on the internet.
Okay.
I can even be entertained through YouTube or whatever. So it's basically just sports. It's
So
not
you
even.
ask me what channels do you need, and I can tell you because I've been running with YouTube TV for quite some time now.
Man, it's so much smaller than it was 10 or 15 years ago. I just need to be able to watch college football games.
ESPN, all the ESPN networks are there.
FS1, all the
FS1.
Fox,
Yeah, those are all there. Big Ten Network.
ACC, SEC, all that. Big Ten Network.
ACC, SEC, that's a good question. I think ACC, yeah, because they're both ESPN networks, right? I think
I've
they're a
always
part.
run into some kind of issue.
I'd have to look at those two, but well, yeah, the ones that I watch, and then they also get NBA TV, which I know you don't care about, but you get some other channels that I know back in the day with cable, those channels were
Yeah.
extras. So
I'll see, back in the day, I was buying the Major League Baseball ticket so I could watch every game.
Yeah.
Those were the days. All right. Appreciate y'all being here. This is a Tuesday stop for everyone, so make it on back. If you joined us late, all you need to do is stick around. You can watch the rest of the show, what you missed. And again, from the Hawkeye of the Storm on a daily basis, tell your friends that we're here talking Iowa football as well throughout the off season. And we've got Nebraska Live, so whether you're there to listen, comment, troll, whatever the case might be, over on the Huskers channel here in just about a half hour, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central. And we will
love
see you
trolls, Mark. We love trolls.
Love trolls.
Anything to get trolls over in the I got this one guy that shows up to our doesn't even always show up to women's basketball streams. He'll show up to any stream, and all he says is, Angel Reese is better than Caitlin Clark.
Who does she play for?
She's LSU. But it was, that was the national title game.
Oh, that. And they had their little confrontation, correct? Yeah. Okay.
And her little nickname is the Bayou Barbie. And there was talk about her. She didn't play for quite some time this year. And Kim Mulkey's she kind of acts like an animal at times on the court. She wears camo and weird striped clothing. And she's just kind of Nope. Not many people outside the LSU and Baylor realm like Kim Mulkey. And so anyways, just the whole Mulkey Reese. There's a lot of, this, Mark. We've talked about this off the air. There are a lot of really passionate women's college basketball fans right now. I think more than ever, that sport has just really taken off as far as interest is concerned. Good for them. But anyways, yeah, it's amazing these people that just live on social media. So
does Iowa have a legitimate chance to win the national championship?
I think so. Sure. Yeah. They were in the national championship a year ago, and
I know.
I think, it's hard to get there, as you know. The one and done format's just hard. They could be one of the 2 or 3 best teams and lose in the Sweet 16 or not get to the Sweet 16. A couple of years ago, they lost in the round of 32 to Creighton at home. And that was a big upset, but it's hard when you have the one and done type of format. So they're playing really well right now. Top of the Big Ten, second best team in the conference is Indiana. Iowa absolutely destroyed them on Saturday, beat them by 27. So Iowa's atop the Big Ten all by themselves right now. But they got some tough games. They play your Buckeyes this weekend on the road. That game, I think, is on NBC, so get some good TV coverage there. And how about Erica giving you a $2 Kim Mulkey super chat?
Oh, let's look at that. Very nice. And
YouTube
educating me on something here.
YouTube will only take about 50 or 60 cents of that?
No, they'll take, they'll
take about
something like that. Yeah. Kim Mulkey is obnoxious. Okay. Erica, I will take your word for it. I'll take that to the bank because I will not be finding that out myself. That's not something I will experience.
I would second that comment from Erica Goldberg. So I agree with you, Erica.
Yeah, I just know that confrontation took social media by storm, and that was my takeaway from the national championship game last year. All right, folks, one more time. Next Tuesday, we will see you back here. In the meantime, stay warm and check out Corey's work each and every day at from the Hawkeye of the Storm. See you next Tuesday.